This is the Scuba Educational Alliance Ocean Podcast, Episode 25. The Scuba Educational Alliance Ocean Podcast is a bi-weekly podcast dedicated to the world of scuba diving, ocean health, sustainability, and fostering a new generation of ocean stewards through diving education. Hello, and welcome again, everyone, to this latest episode. I'm your host, Jeff Centropino. I'm also the founder and president of the Scuba Educational Alliance of Connecticut, dedicated to fostering a new generation of ocean stewards by breaking down the financial barriers that young men and women face to become and advance as scuba divers. Yes, the school buses were out yesterday, a sure sign that fall is coming, and all the pumpkin spice food and beverages are hitting the market as well. I'm also seeing a few twinges of color on some of the trees out back, but we've had some very nice weather here in New England the past couple of weeks. Cool nights with the windows open and warm, dry days for the most part. Finally, a break on the electric bill. Last week was pretty busy with a couple of webinars, some writing, the DEMA board meeting, and I participated in the latest Level Up podcast from Scuba Diving Industry Magazine, where I discussed my latest article. But today, my feature segment is going to focus on a report that came from an international panel regarding the future workforce impacts if we pursue an ocean sustainable economy. Certainly some food for thought. But first, let's get some news and information updates with Seastate. This is Seastate here on the Scuba Educational Alliance Ocean Podcast for Thursday, August 28, 2025. Up first, a mystery has been solved. The mystery of what has caused the massive sea star die-off along the Pacific coast of the U.S. Now, the die-off started way back in 2013, and I read about this in the book Ocean Outbreak, Confronting the Rising Tide of Marine Disease by Drew Harvell. The book was published in 2019, so it has taken a dozen years to finally nail down what has caused over 5 billion sea stars to die. Researchers have found the cause to be a bacteria related to cholera. Their findings were released in the Journal of Nature, Ecology, and Evolution. It's pretty gruesome how the sea stars die. First their arms fall off, then they develop skin lesions, and then they turn into a pile of goo. Over 20 species were impacted, and the research focused on the worst hit, the sunflower sea star. For those who are into the science, the name of the bacteria is Viropectinicide. With this new knowledge, intervention by breeding a disease-resistant starfish can happen. Now, sea stars are vital in keeping the ecosystem in balance because they eat kelp-destroying urchins. Well, it took a while, but finally the mystery of the sea star die-off has been solved. There was a story that I came across from the Miami Herald Online from a couple of weeks ago, written by Aspen Fugenhoff, about a vivid orange shark caught by fishermen in Costa Rica. This is reported to be the first of its kind sighting. Now, this didn't happen recently. Apparently it happened last August on a sport fishing trip led by Parismena Domus Dia. The fishermen reeled in a 6-foot-long nurse shark with an intense yellow-orange coloring. Parismena Domus Dia did post a photo on their Facebook page that shows the orange shark clearly standing out against the blue-green water. The coloring is a far cry from the normal gray color of nurse sharks. Good news is that they did release the shark, and hopefully it's still out there. I guess the scientific community wanted to ensure that this was real, so they did a peer review and confirmed that this is in fact an orange nurse shark when they published the results in the Journal of Marine Biodiversity. So if you happen to be down in Costa Rica, be on the lookout for the orange nurse shark. I was listening to a podcast titled The Week Unwrapped that comes out of the UK, and what caught my attention was the headline, "Why are people watching the ocean floor?" Well, it turns out that this is something that's going on in Argentina. They are watching a live feed coming from a research project that is being conducted by CONICET. That's Argentina's main agency fostering science and technology, in conjunction with the Schmidt Ocean Institute. The research is being conducted in Mar del Plata at 4,000 meters underwater by the ROV Sebastian. Seems people are really getting into the live stream. They are naming different fish and putting together social media quizzes and things like that. On the podcast, they did talk about some of the political aspects behind some of this, but the researching the ocean to gain knowledge is a good thing, don't you think? And if people are excited about the ocean, that's a good thing too. I did take a peek at some of the videos on the Schmidt Ocean YouTube channel. You might want to see what people are watching. Seems like every 2 weeks I have another Here We Go Again when it comes to troubling news coming out of our government's approach to science and research. This time the headline is that NASA is moving away from tracking climate change. You see, the Secretary of Transportation, who is also the acting director of NASA, wants NASA to not do all this earth science. So the administration is calling for the destruction of 2 satellite missions that have been critical in global climate and ecological monitoring in the past decade. The 2 missions, OCO-2 and OCO-3, the OCO stands for Orbiting Carbon Observatories. Now, OCO-2 is in its own orbit, while OCO-3 is attached to the International Space Station. So that one, OCO-3, can be turned off and hopefully turned back on later. But the other one, OCO-2, could result in a fiery crash. In 2023, NASA reported that these missions provide exceptionally high-quality data over the past 10 years, and it's been used by both researchers and farmers. Like I said, here we go again. No science, no data, no clue. Okay, let's get to a couple of good news items. Dive Newswire had an article from Marine Lab where they're doing something unique in Key Largo. Marine Lab is taking over the Jules Undersea Lodge, including the lodge itself, the lagoon, and the gift shop, and they're rebranding it as Marine Lab Undersea Park and Museum. Marine Lab is part of the Marine Resource Development Foundation, or MRDF. MRDF was founded by Ian Koblick. He is quoted as saying, "Everyone can be a marine explorer through scuba diving and snorkeling. This expansion fulfills my original dream." The takeover is happening fast and scheduled in just a couple of days, September 1st. Plan is to revitalize the lodge, expand programs, put in an undersea museum, and provide community access where dive shops are welcome to come in for training. Now, I've been to Key Largo several times, but never visited Jules Undersea Lodge. Went past the turnoff a number of times. Hopefully the next time I get down there, I'll pay a visit to Marine Lab Undersea Park and Museum, and that's located at 51 Shoreline Drive in Key Largo. There was a blog post on the Ocean Conservancy website by Hannah Dufron. It asked the question, do beach cleanups really work? Hannah works with the Ocean Conservancy and the University of Toronto's trash team to manage the International Trash Trap Network, ITTN, yet more abbreviations. She then discussed how your cleanup efforts can have a lasting impact. No doubt we have a pollution problem from plastic and trash in the oceans, and that it's going to take a 3-pronged effort to solve. We must reduce our use, manage our waste, and cleaning it up. Cleaning it up not only gets it out of the waterways, it also gives us data to impact change. For example, they installed a Mr. Trash wheel, that's interesting technology in and of itself, in Baltimore, and they collected data from what they were picking up. Well, they put a ban on disposable polystyrene foam, and within a year they saw an 80% reduction in that type of trash that they were collecting. California also used data from cleanups to reduce and recycle single-use plastic. So yes, beach cleanups do work, and are part of a building of a community that inspires individuals to act and maybe even shape policy for the better. Well, that's it for this installment of Sea State here on the Scuba Educational Alliance Ocean Podcast. Since the beginning of this podcast just about a year ago, I've done a number of segments on issues that are impacting the oceans, whether it be the Supreme Court's ruling on Chevron deference, the withdrawal from the Paris Climate Agreement, or the various actions being taken here in the U.S. with respect to climate research and deregulation. In my opinion, these moves are short-sighted and playing the short game that will result in a long-term loss. But what if we implemented sustainable policies for the ocean? What would that look like for not only the good of mankind, but more practically, the good of the workforce? We can take a look at that by using the blue paper commissioned by the High-Level Panel for Sustainable Ocean Economy, simply known as the Ocean Panel. The report is titled, "The Future of the Workforce in a Sustainable Ocean Economy." Who and what is the Ocean Panel? Well, it's a group of world leaders like presidents and prime ministers who are building momentum for a sustainable ocean economy. You can guess who's not on the panel. The Ocean Panel was established in 2018. Here's their mission, taken from their website. By enhancing humanity's relationship with the ocean, bridging ocean health and wealth, working with diverse stakeholders, and harnessing the latest knowledge, the Ocean Panel aims to facilitate a better, more resilient future for people and the planet. Now, how can you argue with that? Let's begin our discussion on the blue paper with a quote from the top of the foreword. Here it is. "We stand at a fork in the road. One path, business as usual, leads towards declining human health and increasing inequality through exacerbation of a triple planetary crisis of climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution. The other path, one of a sustainable ocean economy, leads towards healthy, prosperous, and equitable societies." So the paper looks at what can happen to the workforce if we choose the sustainable ocean economy path and what the workforce might look like in 2050. Now, there is a term that needs to be defined that may be a little confusing, the blue economy. I say it might get confusing because it might get lumped in with that Green New Deal in some people's mind, and that's a bad thing. But the blue economy is a term that we should understand. There are three elements to the blue economy. One, it's the portion of the national economy that can be related to the ocean. Two, it prioritizes sustainable use of resources, and it encompasses portions of the ocean economy focused on technology innovation. So it's not just about sustainability, it's about the whole thing that the ocean gives to our economy. The first thing that the report does is set a baseline for how many jobs depend on the ocean. These jobs include fisheries and aquaculture, coastal and marine tourism, marine transport, offshore energy, and emerging industries like marine biotech and renewables. The baseline estimates that there are 133 million jobs across these categories. What it doesn't include are things like subsistence fishing that could add another 100 million. Of the 133 million, the biggest group is in coastal and marine tourism, 79 million, followed by fishing and aquaculture, 24 million, and marine transport at 19 million. With that baseline, the report concludes that if we transition to a sustainable ocean economy, there will be an additional 51 million jobs added to the global workforce by 2050. If we stall and do nothing, and that just might be happening, there is an estimated loss of 40 million jobs. Here's an example of stalling. Here in Connecticut, there is an offshore wind farm project that is about 80% complete, and it was just issued a stop work order by the administration. The wind farm was on schedule to complete early next year and would provide energy to 350,000 homes across Connecticut and Rhode Island. Plus, the jobs associated with this clean energy will just go away. So, what are the 6 top areas that must be addressed for a sustainable ocean economy in the long term? Number 1 is climate change. How are we doing there? Second is adoption of sustainable practices. Then we have emerging and innovative industry sectors, followed by investment and access to finance. And then there's the changing demand for ocean-based goods and services. And we round it out with changing demand for energy. Let's take a look at the 5 areas that need to coordinate to be successful in the future of sustainable ocean workforce. First area, and the big one, is governments. They need to set policy, create incentives, and make investments for the future ocean economy. Then there is the private sector, companies that embrace sustainable practices while balancing profits and stewardship. There are many companies who are doing this, but far too many who do not. These companies must also invest in their people. Financial institutions need to provide innovative funding mechanisms and support impact investing. The educational institutions should adopt curricula that address the emerging skills that are needed, making their training programs accessible and affordable while creating new courses and certifications. Finally, civil organizations that help monitor progress, promote advocacy, and engage the community complete the circle. For me, this starts at the top with governments. Governments who lead and make sound decisions and look to the future, not the past. Governments who see that we just can't keep taking from the planet. We need to protect it. Without governments leading, private sector and financial institutions are less likely to come to the table. We've seen the impact that government has had on educational institutions recently. That just leaves us with civil organizations fighting the uphill battle. It's not enough. The paper from the Ocean Panel is pretty dense. There is so much information that outlines the path forward. Sadly, I don't think there is an appetite to choose this path forward, at least not right now. But 2050 is not that far off. I'll close with the final words from the panel. We call upon the diverse stakeholders of a sustainable ocean economy to embrace the principles and opportunities outlined in this blue paper. Together, we can strive for a sustainable ocean economy where effective protection, sustainable production, and equitable prosperity go hand in hand. Seems like today just to mention the word sustainability doesn't sit well with a lot of the people who are in charge. Why? Profit over planet, perhaps? I think so. Well, that's it for this 25th episode of the podcast. Thanks again to everyone who is listening, and stay tuned for more. I'll be back in a couple of weeks. Till then, take care, everyone. This has been the Scuba Educational Alliance Ocean Podcast, a show dedicated to the world of scuba diving, ocean health, sustainability, and fostering a new generation of ocean stewards through diving education. Talk to you again real soon.